He stopped me before we started. What's up? What's up? I'll do it one more time. Okay, I messed up the countdown. What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the More Life Podcast. My name is Bart Aniston, if you are new around here, and I'm your host. This week, we got Alex Eiman of Eiman Designs, and we're going to be chatting a little bit about his story, about where he comes from, what he's doing, and all that fun stuff. And we're going to solve the world's problems, too. So please, Alex, say hi to everybody, please, on the podcast.
Hey, how's it going? Glad to be here.
I'm very happy to be here. I notice this trend where I always start off by laughing whenever I introduce a guest, and it's usually because anybody that I throw the conversation to when we first start this podcast, it is usually whoa, okay, it's my turn type of thing. So you're doing great. I'm happy you're here, good. Bro. Yeah. We're going to have a good time. I want people to, I guess, maybe understand a little bit about who you are in your own terms, in your own words. Explain what you do, I guess, professionally, what your passion project is. What do you do for a living? Why are you here?
Yeah, no, good question. So I've been a designer for about 10 years professionally. This summer I graduated school 10 years ago. And I was kind of self-taught. I got into graphic design in high school. I took a web design class for credit or whatever, and found I had kind of a knack for it. So I taught myself Photoshop over the summer between 17 and 18 and loved, graphics and stuff. So by the time I graduated high school, I knew, hopefully that I wanted to do this for the rest of my life. And so it's really been about, 13 years of kind of working in design, and then the last 10 professionally. And so I've had, a number of jobs and stuff in different industries, and I currently work at a small fintech company, which is financial tech company, for anybody that doesn't know that. And I do kind of all things design. I'm sort of the art director, and then I work in branding, and I work on product design as well. So UX, UI, and different things like that. So it's kind of a brief
really cool
overview. Yeah. So.
So you're doing a lot of different components of marketing, right? You're doing some brand, some strategy, some art direction. You're doing hands-on UX, UI. You're kind of like the Mr. Fix-It guy over there.
Pretty much. I'm the only designer, so that's part of the reason too. Is we have no one else to do that. So
okay, so it's a department of one.
Pretty much. I'm under the marketing department, but it spans beyond that, doing product design and stuff. So
yeah. And what about your passion work, your freelance work? Because I know you did a little bit of freelance on the side, even when you were doing regular 9-to-5 employment work. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so I freelanced pretty much my whole career, and then I actually jumped into full-time freelance about 4 years ago and did that for a solid 2 years. I was a contractor during that time, but I really focused on kind of branding projects and stuff. So during that time, I was, full-time freelance. And then I've kept a little bit of projects I probably take on maybe 2 a year at this point. But my career up to this point has always been kind of on the side. Yeah. If something I really, comes along, some project come along that I really, feel like I can jive with, I'll take it on. And then I've been doing, like you mentioned, kind of passion, personal work as well. And so a couple of years ago, I was burnt out from my day job. And so I wanted to sort of rediscover what design as a passion could be, because it started off as a passion and became a job. And so I wanted to sort of rediscover what it was like to have fun, do designing something again. So I would, after the day was done, go to the gym or whatever. Don't do that anymore, but I used to. And then go home and or go to a coffee shop or something and just work for a couple more hours just on personal stuff, illustrations, different series and stuff. And sort of out of that came this national park project that's been sort of my little baby for a couple of years. And so it's all just my own kind of personal work, but I do, badges and stuff for different national parks, and I sell products and stuff on the side. So it's been a pretty good little, side hustle. Yeah.
You said something there that was pretty interesting. You were self-employed for 2 years, and then you went back to regular, corporate America, 9-to-5 type of work. So what happened in the 2 years when you were freelancing? Did you consider it a success, or did you not consider it a success, or was that the reason why in terms of moving back and forth?
I think it was a success in terms of like personal growth. I feel like I was probably the most creative during that time. I was doing all kinds of side work and stuff just for fun, just for me. But then I was taking on all these extra projects and stuff. And so I felt the most free and most creative probably during that time. So it was a success in terms of my growth. But I started dating someone and I proposed to her 10 months later and needed something more stable than the freelance world. And for me, it was just sort of the roller coaster of not knowing if you're going to have a contract end suddenly or have, not enough work coming in the next couple of months. And so I returned to the, 9 to 5 grind for some obvious reasons too, just benefits and stuff. Health insurance is crazy in this country. So it's good to have, as many as covered, much coverage as you can. So that was sort of the motivation, but maybe I'll go back to it in another 5 years if things are right or timing's just right. So
one of the things that I always, I don't know, maybe I was just late to the party. I really felt like I didn't know this until I should have known this way before. I was probably like 1 to 2 years into running, freelance / almost a business. We didn't have anybody working with us. There was nothing like that. It was just me. And finally it hit me that if I keep going down this path, it's going to be more business intensive and less actual art intensive. If you keep growing something, you're going to be more bogged down with the other work that needs to happen. So for me, in my mind, I'm doing invoicing and payments and all that type of stuff and making sure people know what work needs to get done. I'm doing a lot of management stuff. And it wasn't until, maybe 3 years ago where I was just if you fast forward, the job is not what it is now. And what I did now to grow it to this place is not what I can keep doing to go to the next level. It would be something completely different. And what you said is very it hits true, because it's you have to do what's right for that moment. You were doing freelance work, and freelance work, it's a you called 9 to 5 a grind. Freelance work is also a grind.
Yes, okay? It is. Yeah.
Where you're always every month.
Yeah. You work every day.
Every month. Every day, every month. How am I going to pay these bills? What's going to happen? And now for us, we it's okay, we got to make sure we have enough money to pay all of our vendors, all of our contract designers, our developers and stuff like that, to make sure everything still flows. But I'm so happy that you kept the passion side alive, where you were still I'm going to go work at a company and do somebody else's vision, right? You're working for somebody else's goals and brands, and there's nothing wrong with that. That's great. But you still you got to save a little bit of extra juice to kind of do the other stuff as well, to be hey, I also have my own dreams and things that I'm passionate about and that I want to do. How did the national park thing even start? Were you an avid hiker? Were you traveling to go see these sites? How did this work?
I mean, I'd been to a couple parks before. I think it was literally just a series. So I mentioned kind of taking on personal projects just to fulfill my soul again. I was sort of wanting that passion back. And so I just started I was doing coffee shop illustrations and stuff, just a series of things, and posting them on Dribble, and, you get 50 likes and you're oh my God, that's so awesome. Sort of that little high, and,
Dribble can do that.
Yeah. And then it just leaves you so desperate later when you don't get those likes. That's a whole other thing though. But then I was, growing Instagram and stuff. So it was just putting stuff out there and just feeling it was received well. And so the national park thing kind of came out of that desire just to kind of continue a series. And so I thought I would do it one a day for a month or 2 months and just do a really simple badge thing, having really no illustration skills up to that point. And so it sort of morphed, and I started actually doing, revising them and start actually doing landscapes and stuff, trying to draw them and trying to figure out my style. And so I'm still not done 5 years later. Unfortunately, I still have probably 20 parks to finish. It takes me a really long time to I know I'm the slowest, but the business is kind of, I started selling stickers and different products. And so it's just kind of grown, and it's kind of grown every year, and it's gotten, more profitable and stuff. But for me to sit down and do a badge is just so much more complicated than it was a year or two ago. Because I'm busy with other stuff. So I'm going to finish one day. I'm tired of talking about how I'm not done with it, but it's just sort of a slow grind project for me at this point.
It's like when someone says, I'm going to go visit all baseball stadiums, and then you're like, man, this takes a lot of work to go visit all the baseball stadiums. It's a lot of baseball games.
It is. But
yeah, go ahead.
well, I will say that it brought me to a lot more parks too. Is like I felt like I was being a poser by not having visited all these places, and so I was able to go to a lot more, and I still have that desire, But so anyway.
How many parks are there? Do you know? I guess you do. You're drawing them.
63, I think now.
National parks in America.
62 or 63, yeah.
Yeah, and I feel like
weird,
Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry. I was going to say, they keep making weird things parks. They made the St. Louis Arch a national park, and then they made some bridge a park. So they're kind of scraping the barrel a little bit, so they're kind of making man-made structures into actual national parks and stuff, so...
That's
it's
very
getting
funny.
A little funky.
Maybe they're just trying to get to 100. It's like, listen, we're almost there. We're at 65. We just got to find a few more things, guys. The Hyperloop in Las Vegas is going to be a national park.
Exactly.
Oh, man. I feel like American national parks, we call them provincial parks over here in Canada. I feel like American national parks are more iconic. Like,
sure.
We don't have as many things that are recognizable. Like, even like you just said, the St. Louis Bridge. I've never been to St. Louis, but I know what it looks like.
Sure.
So it's like, you know what I mean? Like, there's more visual cues, which makes it, I guess, more fun because you can kind of draw something that people would recognize even without seeing the name on there. And it's like, oh, I remember that because they're so iconic. I just think of like, what's that? I'm going to lose it. Shoot. The national vacation guys, the Griswolds. What's their names?
Oh, yeah.
They go on family vacation. They go on vacation, and you go to these like iconic parks. It's about driving across country, and you go and you just stay and you kind of enjoy yourself. You mentioned that you learned illustration, and you don't consider yourself an illustrator. I would have thought you were an illustrator. So how are you making these? Are you using a mouse? Are you using a stylus, like a Wacom tablet?
Not so much. I actually just use the mouse. And so I do. Yeah, it's not, conventional. I would say I wasn't an illustrator until this project. And I could probably not draw. I probably couldn't draw a person or something at this point. Or if I did, it'd be kind of funky and I'd have to cheat. So I'm not actually a big traditional artist either. I can't draw something pen and paper still to this day. And I've never really been able to. If I really practice, I might be able to. But so I sort of had to teach myself a style that worked in the vector world, but looked realistic enough. And so I try to toe that line. So yeah, I'll just kind of get the mouse and just a lot of a lot of the stuff's organic, so it doesn't have to be perfect. So I just kind of trace things. And yeah, it works for me. But
I got lots of flack after I graduated the first design agency I worked at because I only used the mouse, and they were huge on what are they called, the Cintiqs, the big. They're the Wacom tablet that's like the computer where you draw on the actual all-in-one computer. And they were doing like animation stuff and all kinds of different work in this agency. And so you just get one of these at your desk. And I just had like a mouse. I wasn't using the stylus. And they're like, have you seen the stylus? Would you like me to show you how to? I'm like, I don't know how to draw. I'm a designer, but I can make anything. I can trace stuff. I can envision something and make it, but I'm just going to use the pen tool instead of an actual pen and just use the mouse and draw it. And it's a unique skill, but it makes a lot of sense. At least for me, I've gotten really good at photo editing, retouching, tracing stuff. Like more technical things can easily be done with a mouse. And I think it's more accepted now. The one thing, it's like, don't give me flack for not being able to use the pen stylus on like the Wacom tablets, and then I'm like, give me grace for using a mouse. But then at the same time, I kind of do look down at people that use like the touchpad. I'm like, how are you doing this with a touchpad?
I have no idea. No. I know there's no precision on the touchpad for me. Yeah,
no,
I'm the same way.
I'm just like, maybe my fingers are way too big or something's going on where it doesn't make any sense. I'm like, I can't draw anything with that. That's like primary school. I wanted to touch base a little bit also about like, the business side, like you said, this was a passion project, and then it was well received on social media, on Instagram. And I don't know, did people start asking you if they could buy these things? Like, how did that all work? Like, you almost had a business happen to you, more than you were trying to set up a business. This wasn't your idea that you were going to build this to be a business.
Yeah, exactly right. So I'd say like 6 months in, it was kind of a combination of like I was getting some traction on Instagram. People were posting like, "Oh, this is cool. Like, you should make a poster. You should make a sticker." And then I also had some friends, some peers that were just like, "Dude, just pull the trigger. Just like go to Sticker Mule, order a couple hundred stickers to go, get an Etsy shop, and just set it up." And that's what I did. So I think I had 6 stickers, or maybe even 5 when I first launched. They're all like Colorado, and then I think like arches or something. So I had just a very, very small, selection to choose from. But I just launched this store, and it was mostly friends and stuff buying it, in the first couple of months. But then it started getting traction. Etsy's great because it's a marketplace and you can search, and there's tons of SEO and stuff baked in. But it sort of just grew, and then like people were requesting all kinds of parks and stuff, and so eventually, I think I doubled the number that year, and now I'm up to, I think I have 40 available. So I'm not done still, but I have a lot more products. I have postcards. I do calendars each year, and then my wife's tired of me talking about it, but I'm trying to grow into, different products and stuff, shirts and hats and things of that nature. It's been kind of my dream. I've just not pulled the trigger for whatever reason on it. So
Yep. Yeah. And that's what I'm learning. I'm learning that a lot of people that see success, they shorten that gap between idea and execution. And I feel like we're a lot the same, where I want it to be just right, and I don't want to overextend anything. I'm trying to be cautious. I'm trying to do the right thing. And I just keep thinking and dreaming and talking about it, and then it doesn't actually happen, but it will. Like I always get there. It just takes me maybe a couple of months or maybe a year or two later, but we're going to get there. We're going to get there.
Yeah.
How do you enjoy being on Etsy? There's lots of pros and cons. I know people that are on there. They take a cut, but like you said, it's a marketplace, which means there are eyeballs already on the site, and you just have to be able to attract them and navigate them and name your things appropriately. Again, you're on somebody else's platform. This is where there's like that give and take, and some people get so caught up on little things, or for them it could be a big thing, like it's not on my, I don't own it in that regard. It's somebody else's platform. I got to pay fees, to payment processing plus to the platform, all that kind of stuff. So I'd love to hear your perspective.
Yeah, I mean, Etsy's been really, really good. Like all those things are true. It's like, it's a huge marketplace. There's tons of people already on the site. And then if you dig into their analytics and stuff, they're doing all kinds of SEO stuff on your behalf. You just have to name things, like you said, correctly, have good descriptions, have, names and stuff. And then they have some search tools that you can like pay to promote yourself and stuff within. But it's basically like, without touching it too much, it's gotten me a ton of foot traffic. You like look at the chart of like where my traffic comes from. It's like most of the time it's like 60% Etsy just within the marketplace, and then it's like Instagram's 25%, and then whatever direct links and stuff. So like that alone, it's like you have that marketplace, you have all kinds of seller protection. Someone doesn't like the product and they complain. You have a whole system to protect you around that. And they have all kinds of procedures and stuff to follow if someone really doesn't like their product or something. They help you with shipping, which is really nice. There's all these other platforms now, but essentially, I can, in one interface, prepare everyone's order, input the weights and stuff of different packages, and then print out a roll of shipping labels in 10 minutes and I'm done. So like, it's a sort of a fully like baked system where you just have this, process from start to finish. And there's other platforms out there like that would probably help. It's just what I've used for so long. And so then the cons of that is, like you said, you're on a platform, you don't necessarily have your own shopping experience. And so the alternatives to that is what I do, which is not the best experience, but I have my website. So all of my traffic goes to Eiman Design Co. And so I have this sort of like, it's my portfolio site with sort of a front page on it where it links out to the national park stuff. So I have sort of a faux shop in the front of my website. And then if people were to click that, it links them into different sections on Etsy. So I at least get sort of that like initial foot traffic URL experience. But the alternative would be there's, Shopify and stuff has different integrations. They're expensive and they're kind of janky. At least from my experience, I haven't really done it super well. but you can have your own shop that's run, through Etsy or something. So I've looked into
and I feel like it gets more complicated that way.
It does, yeah. I've looked into the diversifying and not just having Etsy, because I think there's cons in just having it all on one platform. But I don't want to have to manage 2 different inventories and some, expensive integration each month. So until something changes, I'm cool on Etsy for now. And
yeah. I think people take for granted how when something is simple and just works. I recently was trying to do like some little automation thing where somebody, it's actually for this podcast. When somebody schedules a podcast, they fill out a form to be a guest, and it reminds them and sends them an email. And I was doing all this workaround, and I thought, I didn't realize that Calendly had a lot of those functionalities built in now, where you can do multiple steps inside of a workflow. So I'm here using like 3 different softwares trying to make something work. Meanwhile, if I just paid an extra $3 a month, I could have all the features where I'm like, oh, just fill this out, do this, and then do that. And people take for granted like the additional work of you doing manual inputs, like if you have to like manage 2 separate inventories, that just kills your time. It's like that's not what you really want to be doing. You don't want to be like run a business so I can input numbers and manage numbers and stuff like that. You want to be creating, being creative, and producing stuff. So I think that's really, really cool. I'm excited to see you finish all of the national parks, however long it takes you, and I hope you get to visit them and all that kind of stuff as well. I wanted to pivot a little bit to, maybe more of your 9-to-5 job and talk a little bit about how you stay creative. How do you, because when you work inside of a company or a startup, especially in the tech world, you almost got to be like creative on demand. And people are like, hey, we got an idea for this. This is what we're looking for. And you got to have inspiration locked and loaded. So I'd love to hear you talk about like how you stay inspired. What are some of the things you do to kind of keep those skills sharp?
Yeah, it's a good question. And you're exactly right. It is hard to be creative between 9 and 5 every day. But it's something you sort of practice at too. So I've been fortunate in my role. So I work at a small company called Intrinio. It's a little fintech startup. We sell data. So I'm the only designer, and it's been that way for almost 2 years. And so I'm fortunate in that I've been able to establish a lot of the stuff myself, create the brand, create all the design systems and stuff for their website and for their back end. So everything kind of begins and ends with, that system set up. And so we went through a rebrand last year, and a lot of the guesswork was taken out of the equation, where we have a sort of established system of like, this is, obviously this is what's going to fit into our brand and the style. So that's like one way of like not having to like recreate the wheel every single time you're given a task. It's like, oh, this fits in to this established style that we have. And then on the flip side of that, I'm on Dribbble, and really probably just Dribbble and Instagram at the moment. Constantly, I'm looking for inspiration. In between whatever tasks and stuff, I'm just on there browsing, just kind of enjoying looking at stuff, saving things, documenting. I put them away in different collections and stuff in Dribbble. And so that I sort of am always keeping like a list in my mind, or like keeping like an arsenal of designs I can go back to. And so, anything from like a cool illustration to like a really neat like UI, UX sort of experience, I'll just like something. And then when I have a specific task at hand, I typically go back through my likes and to see like, oh, I probably, have something I've saved here from this exact thing, or go into a collection or something. So I feel like I have this big arsenal of saved kind of inspiration that I go back to and can pull from. That's kind of it for me for now. I don't have too much collaboration with other people at the moment in terms of design. I have some online community and stuff, but it's kind of just like solo work that I have somewhat automated using our established design system, but also like, having a bunch of Dribbble stuff saved is helpful.
And I think that's what you just said there is really smart. You can't wait until you have to produce something to be inspired. Mm-hmm. So you're passively collecting things that inspire you. It doesn't have to be up for a specific project is just like, oh, that's interesting. I like that. And you might categorize them based on the style that they are or what you think it could be inspiration for, maybe like, new landing page or whatever. And when you then have a project or something that you're looking to get done, now you can go back and do that. But if it's like, taking money out of a bank, you can't wait until you need to buy something to go swipe the card. You gotta have, you have to have been putting money into that account. And, whether it's Dribble or whether it's working on a passion project, that's something that's really, as a creative, if you want to stay creative and if you want to be employed for more than just a few years, you're going to have to find a way to stay inspired. Back in the day, we had like communication art magazines, right? Like, I don't know if you ever had those. We had like these magazines that have lots of like graphic artist type stuff. And that's what you would like have and save and clip. Or just keep the magazines. I had so many communication art magazines after college, and that's kind of what you were doing back in the day. But now we have the beauty of Instagram, and if you find the right hashtags, you can follow hashtags. That's a little trick I learned a few years ago, where you could just follow the hashtag, and people that do specific things like UI and UX, you can then follow that hashtag to see what is the industry at large doing. I don't know. You tell me, like, people that are working in the industry or in a specific industry, I feel like you're doing a disservice if you don't keep up on what the trends are, or at least what the pulse is. You know what I mean? In that specific industry, like real estate is going to be different than fintech or SaaS or whatever it's going to be. So you got to kind of. It's not like it's wildly different, but there are specific things that work in each industry.
Yeah, no, that's exactly right. And like to your point, obviously there's trends and stuff that come and go on those sites. Like this year's trend, and I kind of jumped on that train, was like dark green was sort of everywhere on Dribble for websites and stuff. And
I just painted my bedroom that.
Did you? Yeah, I mean it's a happening color right now. But so many websites are using like this forest green with like gold and stuff, and it can mean anything from like wellness.
I got gold sconces on the wall.
Exactly. So it works. It works all over.
I love it.
Yeah, but you saw like sites like spa and like wellness sites and stuff, or brands, all the way to like anything in the financial area arena. So we chose green again for our company because we're in the financial discipline. And so you sort of see these trends and stuff come and go in Dribble and stuff. And but to your point though, like definitely, sometimes I'll take a screenshot of something really, really sexy online, like on Dribble, and take it into Figma and just try to like recreate it, see if I can just pull that off. Like how they do that exact grading or something. So I'm always trying to teach myself, new ways of doing things, or how to illustrate certain things or achieve a certain look. But then at the same time, just the tools in general, just keeping up with the times in terms of what software is available. Figma is kind of becoming like the main software that people are using for not just.
I know. I'm just like I'm fighting it because I pay for Adobe. And Adobe XD is not the same. It's not. I see what people are doing on Figma, and I think I might have to change over our whole agency over to Figma. Just it's so powerful. Like what you were just about to say. Finish that thought. It's not just UX UI.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing too. Is I'm contemplating getting rid of Adobe. I mean, I would miss Photoshop, which I don't use as much. But if I could get Illustrator, if I could do my badges in Figma, which I probably can, I just haven't tried it. Pretty much anything I do in Illustrator, I can do in Figma. There's a few things they don't do really well. They don't have any kind of print-centric stuff. So they don't have CMYK or inches or anything to work with. So it's a little bit funky in that regard. But that's an easy enough change, and they're pretty like receptive to new stuff. So I bet in a few years, they have that. But they basically replaced Sketch and a lot of other companies in my mind. So.
Yep. Yeah. And do you use any of that? What's that other company that does the Photoshop killer? It's like and I can't think of it, but they're like taking over Adobe. It's like and they're doing so. They have the counterpart to Photoshop. They have a counterpart to Illustrator, and they can open Illustrator files and Photoshop files, all that kind of stuff. It's a very weird world right now because you go to school and certain things are industry standards. Yeah. It's like this is what you need to do to work with agencies, and schools throw this at you: agency. You want to work in an agency. And, that was like my dream. You're going to go work in an agency, a design agency. And it's true. You show up there, and I got it was Corel Draw back then. And it was Adobe Illustrator, and InDesign was very Quark Express, Quark XD, those things. And InDesign came and took over. And, you kind of get beholden to the thing that you learned and the thing that you like and understand. I know all my shortcuts. I know where everything is. Yeah. I keep up with the updates. I know Adobe. I know Premiere, Videos, XD, everything. And now it's kind of like it's the Wild Wild West a little bit again, where you got a lot of smaller companies, more specialized companies offering really cool products, and they kind of understand because it's more native. This is where I would say the big difference. Have you ever used XD before? Adobe XD?
I opened it once. It didn't really play
it's
with
very
it.
basic.
Yeah.
The issue is Adobe is a software company, and even though it is 2021, their roots are in traditional media. So whereas something like Figma or even Sketch, it was designed for internet, by internet, and it was designed to be collaborative from the very beginning. Yeah. So Adobe's collaboration, Creative Cloud and stuff, is still not where it should be. And I think that's one of the biggest things that's stopping it from staying the king of the castle type of thing, because it's still very much industry standard. But every new product that comes out is so much better at collaboration, working with teams, working with remote teams. Yeah. When you're doing something inside of Figma, you can easily share. You can easily have somebody else inside there. You can easily get feedback and have those comments and everything all wrapped into one. Yeah. And I haven't used it a lot, but every time I see these videos, I'm just like, man, what am I doing?
I'm telling you, you should do one design in there, and I think you'll never go back. Honestly,
really.
It's just a time-saving tool. Like it's like everything that's great about Sketch. I'm not sure if you use Sketch, but everything great about Sketch, but they've taken it to the next level where there's just like so many conveniences. You can have a graphic with all these different things going on, click it, and then there's on the right a selection color panel where you can change all the colors associated with that graphic on the side. So you want to change that green to a pink, you just change it there, and all the colors in that. It's kind of like the select color in Adobe. Is this stuff like that? They've just thought through like, how do we save people time versus having to like go to isolation mode and select that color and then replace it. Stuff like that. Exporting anything you want to without having to put it in an artboard and then like make sure there's no background in the artboard. Stuff like that. That Illustrator is just like a dinosaur with. Figma's just like it's just easy peasy, like
And how do you find like with Illustrator or even with like any of the Adobe products, one of the best feature or the number one feature that I like, is dynamic linking. Is like I can link things together that in like instance of whatever, and the other part of that is like libraries. Can you have saved the libraries of like colors, design system, graphics? Because that's like my comfort.
Yes. Yeah, and that's probably the strong suit of like Sketch and Figma is it's meant for sort of UX first. And so I do have in my current role, I have one file that's just a system library, a design library. And so you create components essentially, and then you can link into another file. So I have a working file of my website work, and I'm pulling reference from those existing assets. But they're editable too. That's the thing. You have a button, so you have a button that's just, a component like a green button. Yeah. And then in your website, you can add that same green button, but you can change the text dynamically on each one, and it doesn't affect the master component.
The original library. Oh.
Yeah. So it's not like you're in concrete where things are exactly what they have to be in the original file. You have the master file. For you to change that green to pink, all of them will change instantly. But you have instances of that in your actual files and stuff. So
okay, I'm excited.
Yeah, And then like there's auto layout, which is like the best thing ever. It's like kind of
What's
like
auto layout?
design. Oh man, watch a video on it sometime. But it's essentially like it's changing the game in terms of if you have like any kind of UX or like website layout. Before you had to like, if you had a text box and you wanted to add another paragraph, you had to like go into that text box, expand it down, type in the new paragraph. This is everything. It's just basically like what CSS is. So you're laying out your page that's all dynamic based on the content you have in there. And so if you need to like add a component in, it just essentially moves things down. It makes them responsive. It has things like auto bump down to the next level.
Whoa.
It's pretty exciting stuff. It's like getting to the level where you could like create pretty much a 100% realistic prototype, give it to somebody, and they think it's an app essentially in some ways. So it's just kind of bridging that gap between design and development as well. So. And
what about collaboration? Like, can you share a file with somebody else? Because it's all online.
Yeah. I'm gonna have to charge one of my. They keep dying on me. Sorry. So collaboration is that's like the number one thing. So I can share my prototypes with my team, and then they can go in there and actually click around and see the live design and change things that they want to, or like leave comments and stuff. So it's pretty much taken the need I used InVision for a while, which is like a prototyping sharing tool. It kind of cut out the need for that. You can have, different pages linked together, so you create prototypes, and then you can actually spit out code for developers and stuff as well, which is pretty nice.
That's fantastic.
So click on a button and see all the properties and stuff. Yeah. So
right. It does a lot.
It eliminates files. You don't have to ever save a file again or keep versions of files.
Oh, it's auto saving and with history, with versions.
Yes, with history. Yeah. You don't have file. You just log into Figma on your computer and all your stuff's there, and you have a history panel on the side. There's no more versions whatsoever.
Well, Figma, if you want to sponsor this episode, you can reach me at.
I know, right?
I have been watching it for a while. I don't do a lot of my own like designing a lot because, like I said, we run a company, but I still do some clients web design specifically for new projects, and we don't have a specific UX UI designer. We just have a junior designer right now, and so I'm very interested to see what this could look like as a team for team licenses. If we got a couple of these licenses and what we can get done with it, because the world is changing, and I think I'm kind of being like the old guy holding on to the things that I like. Yeah, it was better in my day when Adobe did everything, and Adobe is not cheap. I keep telling people it's like
it's not. No,
it is made not affordable.
Cheap. It used to be like $2,000 or something. Back when we were in
school. I prefer that because I could use that for 5 years. Yeah, but now it's like $80 a month. Yeah. So you're always going to be ending up paying more in this subscription model, and for us, it's American dollars, so it's like 7,000 Canadian dollars, $80 a month.
I think about that. Yeah.
Right. You mentioned design systems. I love to touch on that before we have to go. This is really good. A lot of times people make style guides, for like a brand or whatever, and they don't have any practical things to make it work in the regular world, in the sense of like you're going to build an app or a website, or you're going to build a social media package. So you have an outline as to what you should do to honor the brand and to make it work well. Talk to us a little bit about design systems and how they can help you execute the stuff that you have inside the brands.
It's a good question. So I was originally thinking that we're talking about design systems in the sense that that's what you do for UX UI projects. You have essentially just a library of things. So are you asking sort of like how that can work for more branding stuff, or how does a brand work
for branding or UX UI? Because like for us, we have a style guide for our brand for Creative Partner, but then we eventually created a design system where it makes it so much easier to have the colors palette set up in a live work file, and our fonts, and the way we do our buttons, and the way that we do all of our headings. All that stuff is saved inside of XD, not in Figma. But it makes it so much better. Like, we want to update our Facebook banners. Well, we already have a system that kind of holds that all together.
Sure. Yeah, I'd say they're crucial. And from a UX perspective, it's like, I used to actually design UX pages in Illustrator, and that was a nightmare because I didn't use libraries and stuff. I'm old school. That's the thing too. Until Figma, I was kind of like you with design, with Illustrator. They'd come out with some new feature, and I'd be like, I don't know how to do that. I'm going to do what I know and use the pen tool or something. I would never like embrace the new things until I got to Figma, where I'm just like, oh, that makes sense. Why am I not learning this new thing? So I would design things. I would design pages like literally this pixels on the screen. And if I had to go change anything, it was just such a pain in the butt just to go in there and move things around and all that. So design systems give you flexibility, and they're just extremely helpful for making changes and stuff. And so you sort of have like, one source of truth where all your branding assets are together, your colors, fonts, everything. And if I were to go and change any of those, it's universally changing throughout all my website pages, which I have like 100 pages going at the moment in Figma. And so,
wow.
Well, maybe not probably instances of pages, probably about 100, yeah.
But so when you say 100 pages, is that 100 different projects or a website of 100 pages?
A website of 100 pages. It's maybe a little bit less than that, but there's quite a bit in there. But
and are you doing like beta stuff in there as well? Like we're testing stuff out. We got some test pages here. We're working on things there.
Yeah, exactly. And so it's always kind of evolving and changing. If I come up with something new on a page, I might put it into the design library and like graduate it to be a universal component. And so if I have like the same header banner on all my pages and I want to make a change to it, I can do that in the design system. And so it affects all the pages I have previously. So It's good from a practical standpoint, but it's also just like keeping you, on track with your brand, making sure you're using all the same colors and fonts. You choose from a list versus invent some new thing every single time. So
yeah, and it helps the slippery slope. Sometimes what happens is you make unconscious decisions, and it's like, yeah, we used this lighter version of the green and it worked really well, and then it's never recorded anywhere. Nobody else can find it, and it keeps everything kind of in sync where you're kind of like slipping away from what you said you wanted to design, and this keeps it like locked and loaded until you're ready to make, like you said, graduate it and like make a change and say, hey, we're actually going to adjust, how we're going to do these buttons or what the hover animation is going to be like, what all that stuff is going to be. In UX and UI, I feel like more and more that's becoming even more important. Like, if it doesn't feel good, the experience isn't good, then you lose people right away. And we live in this world of like lots of flash and like gizmos, like even what's that one called, Webflow, super cool. Yeah. I'm always concerned like, will this work properly? Is if I give this website build to X, Y, and Z, are they going to be able to figure it out beyond all the cool animations and all of that type of stuff, all the Swift 3 and all that kind of stuff that happens? Just having things that work is so helpful, and I find like user experience has grounded me as a designer, where you kind of have to think of like, how is this actually going to play out versus how nice and how cool it all looks, because we can get caught up in how cool things can look too.
No, I mean, that's to your point. We've probably heard the term, the dribblization of design for a while, and it's still very, very popular, but like, people would just make the coolest looking, 800 by 600 graphic that was not practical in any sense to make or design. And you still see that today, where it's just like they do anything to make that shot cool. But like you said, it sort of grounds you. And like, this has to be developed on a platform, Webflow or a mobile app or something, but be like practical and like usable on all these different scales and devices and stuff. And so really, I'm sort of being a self-taught UX person, you're going from like, the sky's the limit. I can create whatever I want to graphic wise to like, no, this has to be like coded design and like responsive and stuff. And so making your designs flexible in that way it's more of a discipline. So I feel like UX, you can kind of get into it from any like walk of life. You don't have to be like the world's best artist to become UX UI. You just have to, appreciate good experiences on the web and have like an eye for detail and stuff. And using design systems and things of that nature, you're sort of beholden to a specific style that you can just, move things around and make it work without having to, reinvent the wheel all the time. I say though too, one more plug for Figma and I'll be done. Get off that. It'll slow down. Talking about design systems. Yeah. They've introduced two things actually. So they have a bunch of plugins now that make your life so much easier. All kinds of dynamic stuff to make, designing easier. But then they also have this community aspect of it where you can go on there and search iOS or whatever it is, and you can go grab someone else's design system and use it as long as they've made it public. And so there's tons of resources for free.
Whoa.
You can go out there and say, like, I want a specific, banking app style, and go find someone's design, and then just use all of their existing components in their own design libraries and stuff. So
that's very cool.
Yeah, it's taking collaboration to the next level where it's not just people it's you can put anything out there on the web and have it shared and be used and consumed. So interesting.
Was that the only one, or was there another one?
That was it. I was just saying that and plugins are just like the big thing.
Alex, I'm super happy that we got to hang out and talk. Nerd out a little bit about design and catch up. And I genuinely think other designers will find this conversation helpful. People that are, trying to find the balance of 9 to 5 freelance, how do I make everything work? Do I start a business or do I not? And understanding a little bit more of the functions of design and all that type of stuff. So I'd love for you to shout out where people can find you, where they can follow you, and I also want you to make sure you plug in that Instagram channel, because I know it gets lots of visits, and I want people to see your work.
Yeah. So you can find me, it's Eiman Design Co. And so that's pretty much universal. On Instagram, it's just /Eiman Design Co. It's EIMAN Design Co. EimanDesign.co is my website. And I think that's it. Dribble as well. So go find me in any of those.
I didn't know you were on Dribble. I gotta start posting some stuff on Dribble, because I'm there all the time. I'm already spending so much time there.
It's my actual name on Dribble. It's not Eiman Design Co. So
okay, so it's Alex Eiman. Yeah. Got it. Well, this has been the More Life Podcast. Thank you guys for listening. If you've enjoyed this episode, go give it a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts or on Spotify. And peace out, guys. Catch you on the next one. Bye. That was great.